This is the Comics Gazette. Now, here's your host, Connor Murphy.
Welcome to the Comics Gazette. My guests this week are two hilarious stand-up comedians, Johnny Candon and Kurt Metzger. I'll be talking first with Johnny about the comedy scenes of London and Dublin, working with Ricky Gervais on his Animals DVD, and his history with the Edinburgh Festival. Then shortly after, I'll be talking with Kurt Metzger, a New York comic, on his podcast Race Wars, writing for Comedy Central's Inside Amy Schumer, and the reaction to racial humour in America today.
Hello! Alright, how are you? Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's a very special night for me. I've been going out with my girlfriend for 1 year and 1 week this evening. You're all thrilled, the rest of you couldn't give a fuck. That's great. No, it's lovely living with her. Before I lived with my girlfriend, I lived with a couple of lads, 4 lads in a flat in Hackney, right? And we were dirty little fuckers, right? We didn't clean the place once, we were filthy, right? And when we were moving out and we were cleaning the flat up, we actually found a flatmate we'd forgotten. That kind of thing, right?
Alright, I'm sitting here at the International Bar. My first guest on the show, very funny comedian, Mr. Johnny Candon. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thanks very much. Cheers.
Now, you, of course, have been back and forth. I know you're based primarily in England, but how long were you there for, Mal?
Well, I live in Dublin now, but I was in England. I started in England. I was there all in all for about 15 years, and then but I'd been living there for about 7 years before I started doing stand-up. It took me that long to get the guts to do it.
And how long at the time, was there a big crop of Irish comedians over there, or were you kind of standing out as the Irish comic?
No, I mean, there was loads. I mean, the first gig I ever went to was in a bar. It was a place called the Meccano Club in Islington, and it was I can't remember the name, I think it was the Market Tavern. I was down in the basement, and the first gig I ever saw was Graham Norton was hosting, Dylan Moran was on, Ed Byrne, and someone else. I think it was an Irish night. Either that or it was just, Irish heavy, but I think, but yeah, that was the first one I went to, and up till then I'd sort of thought that comedy was just men in dicky bows, just kind of like Frank Carson and stuff. And then when I moved to London, it was lots, especially around Islington, well, all over London, it was like loads of little comedy clubs, and that's where I sort of first. I mean, the first time I ever thought I'd loved it was when I saw Jack D on TV when I was a kid. But then, seeing people do it live in London is what made me want to do it then. Yeah.
And you said that this was the first place you done it. Then how far into it did you start to get a pattern and start to actually sort it out a bit?
I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like the first. I suppose anybody who does it would say this. It takes a while to find your feet. You know what I mean? You're kind of right. I mean, the only thing you can do is stuff you find funny, and if it makes you laugh, it will probably make other people laugh. But sometimes that's not the case. So it can take you. It took, I think I was okay from the start, really. I'm not that I was good from the start, but I sort of I found my feet quite quickly, I think. The first gig was a disaster, absolutely horrific, because I just stood and looked at them, really. And if I hadn't had another gig booked in 3 or 4 days later, I probably would have stopped then. But then the second gig was brilliant, went really well. So just kept doing it, really. But there's only maybe 3 or 4 places in Dublin that you could maybe get spots to get better, you know what I mean? So I think the competition there would be quite high because there's loads of comics. Whereas in London, you have your laughter lounge type places like the Comedy Store, Junglers and all that kind of thing, which again you wouldn't approach immediately. You'd have to be, but there's so much more places that you can do open spots and kind of keep going. So there wasn't that much. It wasn't hard to get gigs. You'd ring around and maybe try and do 2 or 3 in a night, like maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if you run it, so I think you learn more quickly because if you do a gig on a Sunday and you do a joke that dies on its arse, you've got maybe 10-15 minutes on the tube to work out why that happened by the time you get to the next gig, and you either don't do the joke or if you've any guts, you'll do it again and try and do it in the way it should be done.
Now, I remember actually seeing you at the Laughter Lounge a few years ago, but you were one of the only comics I actually knew previously, because my first exposure to you was from the Animals DVD.
Oh, right.
And kind of how did you get involved with that whole thing and Ricky's tour and everything?
He just asked me. Yeah, we were just having a pint. We just said, do you want to do support on the thing? I think, see, his normal support is a guy, well, was a guy called Robin Ince, and I don't think Robin could do it. I think Robin was, well, that's not true, because I was working with Robin in the day and then doing that gig at night. I don't know. He just, like, we knew each other, like, we had the same age, and we just sort of started hanging out, really. There was a group of us, like, I mean, there was a big kind of crowd of like I say, like, you'd be doing open spots and stuff. See, but Ricky used to do open spots, but because what had happened was he was doing, had he done The Office? He was doing the 11 o'clock show anyway, and he was on the circuit doing gigs. See, a lot of people when he was doing the Bloomsbury, they kind of go, oh, he's never set foot on stage in his life. He's only but he had actually gigged for like a few years. You know what I mean? He'd been going around, and it's Steve, the other guy, Steve Merchant, who did it with him. They both did gigs and stuff around town, and then. So there was a crowd of us who would sort of just get drunk after gigs and sort of hang out, or if you were in town maybe on a Tuesday, you just ring up and you just go for a beer. And then it was one day he just said, do you want to support me on this thing? It was only for a couple of weeks though. It wasn't like a national tour, so it was in London for a couple of weeks, and it was lovely. It was really it was good sort of. It was good to do because I'd never done a big theatre before. And then a year later, I was doing a tour, well, not tour, but these festivals in Australia, Melbourne and Adelaide, and a little thing in Sydney. And there's a gala where you go on stage, and I think there's like 3,500 people in there. So it's sort of doing that theatre thing is kind of good experience for just doing. It's just good experience. So I enjoy. He's lovely. He's a very nice. He's kind, good dude. So it was just a pleasure, really. You know.
I know now we're just into September, and of course the Edinburgh Festival just passed, and I know you.
God rest it.
Yeah. I know you have an experience out there. How did you kind of, get into that whole scene, and how did it go for you in general, do you feel?
Edinburgh, do you know what, Edinburgh, I've kind of never really... I did one show in Edinburgh that was a solo show years ago. It was the only show I'd ever really had, because I'm adopted. I thought I'd do a show about that, and did that in 2008 or 2009. It's very good. It's like a gym for stand-up, though, because like you do the same show every day, and so for your sanity, if you don't come up with new stuff, not every day, but if you don't come up with new stuff by the end of the festival, either you're not working right or you go mental. I think it's a two-edged sword. I think you should be seen up in Edinburgh, but I was, you know what I mean? I was like in that Big Valley thing. I got a lot of work from that. I got the tour of Australia from that. I got, and then other stuff like the book club. We toured that around the UK and Ireland, and so there'll always be those people who rise to the top and will become like Edinburgh. You become quite successful off one or two Edinburghs, and then there's others who just sort of go there every year for 20 years, and maybe they want to. I wouldn't. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. I kind of think, but yeah, Edinburgh it's good and it's bad. Yeah. But then again, so's life.
I have one more question for you, Johnny, because we split these podcasts up into kind of two guests. I normally like to get an Irish comic or an English comic, and then I like to get an American comedian on then to talk about, the situation over there. And the comedian that I have on it is Kurt Metzger is his name. Now, he does a podcast over there called Race Wars, which is kind of an expose of every kind of race, and I'm not sure if you're big on the whole racial humour angle, but how do you see it in, this country and in England? Are audiences uptight about it? Are they, do they get it more, would you say?
It depends on what the joke is. It depends on who the victim in the joke is, if there is one. If you just say, oh, black people are thieves, then that's racist and not a joke. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying it's serious. I'm saying I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's not funny. I don't know. It's a hard one for me to answer because I'm just white. So I mean, if I see somebody doing material that's racist, I think they're a cunt. Yeah. So if I see somebody doing something clever about race, or you do sometimes on stage, but it's only idiots or drunk people, whoever, or people who aren't listening, who get uptight about things in that. Especially at a late show or something, if somebody goes, I don't know, for an example, just says something about some race, you can sometimes go, or you can't say that. It's like they've not said anything. You know what I mean? They've not said anything bad at all. But I wouldn't say there's any real difference between Irish and English audiences at all. I mean, we're only about 30 miles apart at the closest bit, so I mean, it's, you know, yeah. I don't think they have less of a sense of humour or more of a sense of humour than the Irish. I think Irish comedians, I think Irish people can be some of the best audiences, but that's generalising anyway. But I mean, but only with stuff that they want to listen to. That is a point. If you start kind of going, if you start talking about Einstein or you know, Mary Shelley when she was writing Frankenstein or something like that, they'll be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So it's very, you know, but then that's true of probably a lot of audiences. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I don't do my Einstein or Frankenstein jokes anymore.
You cut them.
Yeah, they go.
Johnny, thanks a million, man. This was great insight into the comedy field, as I said. And have you got a website or anything we can give out?
No.
Like every other comedian, we just can't get our heads around a website.
Yeah.
But
No,
of course, you're all over the internet anyway, Johnny Candon, if people want to look you up and get into it.
If they want to, yeah. On Twitter, and be my friend on Facebook if you want to be. But it's what's my at Johnny Candon is Twitter. But yeah, no, I don't keep thinking about getting a website. If I did, I'd get one. But I sort of I'd like one, but I sort of you've got to maintain them and everything, you know. And
we're comedians, we don't commit to that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I look at other like I've got friends of mine who've got websites, and I look at them, and it's like tour day. I think tour day, like not tour. That's making out that just turning up to gigs is going on tour. But like gig dates is probably quite a good thing to have available. But maybe clips so people can give you work and all that kind of thing. That'd be, yeah. The more I'm actually talking, I should get a website. But then photograph, yeah, because people do sometimes email you and go, "Can you send me a high-res photograph?" And you could just get that off to you. Fuck, I should just get a website. Yeah.
Well, here it is, the announcement. Johnny Candon's getting a website.
JohnnyCandon.com coming soon.
Listen, thanks a million, man. All right.
But here's my problem with Precious. That's not a true story. That's made up. Do you know that? That's not a real girl. They made her up. Why are you making up this girl and doing these things to her? Who's getting helped by that from Precious? Because I'll tell you who's not getting helped. Girls that look like Precious, their lives are destroyed right now. Their lives are ruined by that movie. Because I got news for you. You piss me off and look like Precious, I'm going to call you Precious. Like, you don't even have to look like it that much. So I called this lady White Precious, and she looked very surprised, like she thought she couldn't get called Precious because she was white. Bam! White Precious! That's how clever I am. Quick on my feet.
Kurt Metzger. Kurt, how are you, buddy?
I'm alright, man. How you
I'm
doing?
good, man. Few things I want to talk to you about, man. Of course, you're the host of Race Wars podcast with Sherrod Smalls. And what kind of reaction do you get in general to racial humour in America at the moment?
Well, I think it depends, what the humor is and where you're doing it, I mean, when I started comedy, I started out where it was like kind of all black audiences, so it's a little different than, I think white people are a little more uptight about it than black people are. I don't know. Generally, if you're funny, man, you can really say whatever you want, but it depends on, where you're at and how they take you,
Yeah, and with the diversity in the stand-up audiences in New York, because I know you get people from all over. Do you feel that these days they're kind of more uptight, or are they more comedy savvy?
Well, sometimes it's both things, but New York's good because you get such a mix of people that, it's almost like, you're experiencing people from all over the world, the comedy, so it kind of makes you a better comic. And then, if it's mixed, that's always a better crowd because there's no one, race that has the power,
Right.
I prefer a mixed crowd above all else. All one kind of thing is never as good as everybody has to share with each other, I've had it where they, comedy's savvy and they're uptight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like savvy, especially after Louis came out at the Cellar, that we would get like Louis tourism, you know?
Yeah.
There's people over to see Louis C.K. And you know, he was popular enough where people that aren't even into stand-up are into him, so they want to go see stand-up. And it depends, you know, I don't have any problem with anybody. What bothers me is if you can't just laugh. Like, if you have to make a decision to laugh, as my girlfriend puts it, which I think is the best way, like, you should be just laughing without any control whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
And there's certain people that they have to filter everything through, like, their politics or their religion or whatever, and then they decide if they're going to laugh or not. That's not funny. That's not fun to me. So, like just when I was watching, like the first time I went to the Comic Cellar and I watched Dave Attell, it felt like he was just kicking laughs out of me, you know? Like it wasn't even, I didn't even have a choice, you know?
Right.
So, it should be like a no consent. Like, consent is for sex. With laughs, it should be forced
Exactly.
out of you, whether you want or not. You can get that out of them. I don't mind, you know, when people talk about, like, you know, political correctness is ruining comedy. Like, it's not ruining, like, comedy. Like, people are funny still.
Yeah.
It is kind of making audiences dumber, and it's not making them more sensitive. Like, I understand the goals of when people are, you know, they don't want this or that kind of joke. I understand the goal is they're trying to make people more sensitive to whatever, but it doesn't make people more sensitive. It makes people worry about buzzwords more.
Right, and as well, you're writing for one of the funniest shows out there today, Amy Schumer's show, Inside Amy Schumer on Comedy Central.
You get that in Ireland?
We do indeed, yeah, it's massive over here.
That's crazy, really. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah, but take us through the process of writing for that, man. Like, what's the kind of routine of it?
The hard part is, I mean, the writing, it's kind of the easy part. Like, Amy's kind of smart how she did it, because the people she got to write are like a mix of stand-ups and like sketch people. So those are very different worlds. Stand-up and, like, you know, improv world, they're completely different. Like, improv is such a gentle, twinky, cream puff land of, I mean, it's such a different scene. And so I think it comes out funnier because of that. But generally, you know, you make your pitches, and then they approve whatever they like, her and Jesse Klein and Dan, and then they have you write it, and then you bring it in, they tell you what revisions to make, so you do a second draft, and then after that, the whole room starts throwing in on it. Like, they read the sketches, and everybody starts throwing jokes on it. And then we do that about 3 or 4 more times over the course of the season, where we all just go through all those sketches and just try to add as much jokes as we can. And that's my first, like, you know, sketch show that I wrote for, so I like that process a lot. I really do. It you know, I like collaborating with people, and I like, you know, pitching my own ideas and what have you. Like, it's pretty, that's pretty pleasant. Like, the hard part for me was just gelling with the other people, who are all nice people that I like. But, you know, I'm used to a late night stand-up club kind of people who aren't upset by anything.
Who was the kind of main comics that you look at and kind of made you want to get into the business?
When I was a kid, it was, my favorites were Amazing Jonathan, who was this magician who was like, he had like a real dark sense of humor, and I really liked it. I was really into it. He was my favorite, Amazing Jonathan. And then I used to love the guy, what's his name, with the puppets. Jeff Dunham. You know, I was like 12. I thought that puppet was great.
Right.
When I was 12 years old. And then when I got older, you know, I liked a different thing. When I got older, I kind of liked whatever I saw on Dr. Katz. But then when I started doing comedy, my favorites were much different when I actually did it. You know, so my favorite, like now, what I do on stage is I'm mostly Attell and Patrice O'Neill is like my, you know, who I'm stealing from.
Yeah. Well, no, to be fair,
I'm influenced by, but I say stealing as a joke. But I don't mean like taking somebody's jokes. I just mean that's when I looked at them and what they were doing. I was like, oh, I want to do what they're doing. You know.
yeah, and I know you've wrote some great roast jokes, man. I know for yourself, for Amy, for Jim Norton. I know I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but can you remember maybe some of your favourites that you really, really thought were just gold?
I don't remember what Amy did of mine. I did on that Charlie Sheen roast, the one that I liked, but Chris McGuire, who was another writer, like put the finishing touches. But it was William Shatner was talking to Charlie Sheen, and he goes, "Don't feel so bad. I know another man that was kind to horse." And he was always followed around by 12 losers, and the Jews tried to crucify him, too. People worship that guy.
Ah, that's a great one. Without giving away too much, I know at the moment you're writing a new show with Jim Norton. Is it for IFC, isn't it?
Yeah, IFC, I'm working on the pilot now, so I don't know if that's actually going to be a show. I wrote with him on his Vice show, which was online.
Yeah.
And that's like really fun working with him on that. Like, that's just like it's a really easy gig. I just started this one, so we'll see how it turns out.
And what's the kind of gist of it, if you just want to tell us a little bit about what it's about?
Well, it's I guess like a talk show.
Yeah.
It's it's Jim's point of view. Jim's a very like heavy free speech guy. I would say probably borderline libertarian. But he, the first one was going to be about transsexuals because that's the kind of big topic right now. Trans women and men, right? And we were laughing about it because Jim, I always say Jim was way ahead of the curve on trans.
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah.
So many trans prostitutes. Like open about that topic. We don't have a budget to really do sketches. The sketch I wanted to do really bad was called N-Flack, which I don't think you have Aflac over there, but it's like a kind of insurance for if you make a racial outburst and get in trouble, they pay your bills when you get fired from your job. And like, I don't have the budget to put it in the pilot, but I still want to do that sketch so bad.
Definitely work on that one, because that sounds, even the premise just sounds hilarious.
Yeah, at some point it'll come out. I mean, are you a comic then? I don't know anything about, I've been in the UK, but I was doing a tour with, called the Real Deal Comedy Jam.
Right.
So it was like all Jamaican audiences, but I had a fucking blast out there, man. But I never made it out to, Dublin or anything. Like, did you do stand-up?
No, yeah, I'm a stand-up myself. I actually started in New York because I was over there a few years ago, and I started hitting in the clubs.
Oh, no, yeah, right. So what were you playing?
I do the Stand a lot. I do the Greenwich Village Comedy Club, the Broadway Comedy Club, you know.
Oh, right. What's like the big, because I never played over there, like what's the, is it, all that thing they call out PC and all that shit, is that like what it's like there, or is it like, what's like the hot shit there? And what is it that people love there that you're not into?
I would say it's not as PC. I think people aren't as kind of overreactionary as they are in the States. People don't get called out, for a quote racist, connotations or whatever, as much as they do over there in your country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
By the way, I should clarify. Like, it's not like the thing that bugs me is people will take something like some hateful racist thing and make it out like that's comedy. Like that's the equivalent of a joke that maybe lightly touches on race. That's the part that bugs me. Like, I would understand if someone was saying something genuinely racist for people to get upset about, but what happens here is people just, I think they've caught on that there's a whole industry that's just getting upset, so they just look for anything. It's like I was a kid going to fucking church, man.
Yeah,
like I was in church, and they would, like, you couldn't watch movies that had this or that in it. I couldn't watch the goddamn Smurfs as a kid because supposedly that was demonic. There's fucking magic in it. And I leave this dumb cult to go out in the world, and then I find out everybody's worse in the world.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah, everybody's nitpicking comedians now, just taking everything.
I don't think they're really offended. That's the thing. Like, I don't believe people that there's still people upset about now. If you watch that Bill Burr thing that was on Conan O'Brien, that like made news. Yeah. Because they said he was transphobic for a thing that I don't even think is remotely offensive. And I don't think anybody was really offended by that. I think they just went, ooh, this is a thing to jump on so I can be seen condemning someone for something. Yeah,
but about your special, White Precious, it's on Comedy Central, of course, and how long did it take you to kind of put that hour together, man?
It took me a while. I wasn't on the road enough, so that's why it took longer. If I had enough road gigs, I could make it bang these out faster, But, you really got to go on the road to work out an hour. You can't. I had to do it in the city in pieces. Yeah, well, you got to just practice. You got to practice, man. The bottom line is I got to work it out everywhere. I want as many people as possible to get the joke. I'm not trying to be like a niche market or something. I want like as many people as possible to be on board.
Well, listen, Kurt, this was great, man. I'm going to give you out the plugs now, right? It's Kurt Metzger. Race Wars podcast on SoundCloud, of course. The Comedy Central special, as we just talked about, White Precious. And it's at Kurt Metzger, Metzger. And listen, it's great racial insight. It's a world we're not really too familiar with, but you have both sides of the spectrum. You have honest and open discussions, which the world needs more of now at this stage.
We get people on. I mean, we really do get people on that, which is not like we're not like trying to win or something. So we really try to make it friendly for people. Like if somebody is mad at us and disagrees with us, we'll bring them right on the show because we like that. Like our whole thing is to just let people say what they think. So now I'm getting pretty. The last guy I had on was this guy Tommy O'Malley who was like mad at me on Twitter, and now he's on our show. He's like, Gay Tommy who comes and hangs out. And then I got this girl from Jezebel, the feminist website. She's like the managing editor. She comes on all the time. I try to get as many people who think something different than I think is possible, and then it's kind of like a party. And you'd be surprised at people that end up being friends. Like I can't tell you how many people hated Ann Coulter's guts, but now like her just because of our show.
That's so great, yeah, because I remember listening to the episode and it kind of turned me around even. But Kurt, man, this was really, really great. Thank you so much for calling in, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, buddy. Kurt Metzger, thank you, man.